Good evening and welcome to another episode of Speaking Volumes. Tonight I have Michelle Atias on the sofa on one of our one-on-one sessions. Good evening, Michelle.
Hi.
So you're a life coach.
Yes. I'm a life coach, I'm a mindset expert, I'm also an international speaker, and more recently I became an author. So that's been in the last couple of months.
Oh, you're very busy.
Yes.
Well, I've got your book here, which we'll discuss later. But you don't live in Gibraltar, but you're originally from Gibraltar. Tell me a bit about your background.
So I'm originally from Gibraltar. I left Gibraltar when I was about 18.
Okay.
Lived a couple of years in Israel. Then I moved to the UK. I was only supposed to move for 6 months. But as it happens in my life, is that everything sort of, things just happen. And I ended up staying, well, I've been there for, I would say, about 30 years. Okay. And I settled in the UK. I come to Gibraltar very, very often because I have family here. And, you know, my background is really here and my connection is really here, no matter where I live.
You went to school and everything here?
Yeah, yeah.
Where did you grow up in Gibraltar?
Well, I was in school here. I was in high school here, primary school. It was all here on Main Street, basically. Yeah. That's really where I was born, and it's always fantastic to come back. And nothing you know, things don't really change so much, but it's also very good.
What made you go to Israel?
I always used to love going when I was a child. Mm-hmm. We used to go there on holiday, and I really wanted to experience life out of Gibraltar. Mm-hmm. Again, I was 18 at the time, and I wanted to experience life. I wanted to know what it would be like to be completely free, to experience different cultures, meet people from all parts of the world. I was very excited about it. And again, I was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks, and I ended up staying, actually a year later, I was still living there, because I absolutely loved it. Once I was there, and I ended up joining an American group. Mm-hmm. So I was suddenly meeting all these people from LA, from New York, from all these kids my age. And I just loved it. And I was traveling with them, and I was experiencing the real history of the place as well. And I guess I was also seeing a very different side of myself emerge.
Mm-hmm. Well, 18 years old, it was a coming of age experience, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it was a different self that I hadn't seen coming out here in Gibraltar. So other things emerged, and I loved the freedom there, loved it, and I loved learning a new language, and it was a fantastic experience.
So you went to the UK. Where did you go? London, or did you go to somewhere smaller? Or
so I went to live in London initially for 6 months, but I ended up staying because I got a job straight away. Mm. You know, there's sometimes that things just slot into place, like they did when I'd gone to Israel. Mm. Everything just slotted into place at the time. And so I stayed. I got a job. I had a fantastic... I lived in a great house with about 5 girls as well. Yeah. I was in my early 20s. And it was so much fun that there was no reason for me to leave and go elsewhere. And so I decided to stay. I had a nice network of friendships. I was part of the community there already. And yeah, it just, you know, I got the job. I ended up studying there.
What was your first job, and what did you then go on to study? Was they the same type of field, or? Yeah,
well, it's interesting because I ended up starting off going to work in a finance department. I was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks as a temp. I was there for 2 weeks as a temp, and then they called me back and they said, the lady who was supposed to start working in your role has now stepped down. Would you like to come work with us? And I ended up working there for about 10 years. Wow. And it was amazing. It was a finance department in a very big charity organization. And it was wonderful, but it was not my thing. Uh-huh. I just loved the social. It was quite interesting because when I was working there, I was the youngest member of the organization, and I was probably in my early 20s. And part of my job, aside from doing the finances, was I had to spend 1 day a week doing the filing for the entire department, and which was very boring to me. But what used to happen, it was a walkthrough, and there was like a little chair just in the middle of the filing room. And what I would do as people would walk through, because sometimes some of the executives would walk through on the way to other departments, I would always ask them, how are you? What's going on? Like, what's going on in your life? And they would sit down on the stool and would start to tell me all their problems.
So
and
it's
I
like a counselling.
Yeah. So it was
counselling and filing all at the same time.
It was renamed Michelle's Counselling Room. Now, I wasn't even a therapist then. I hadn't even thought of therapy, life coaching, working with people. I hadn't even thought about it, but it's incredible how very naturally you just verge towards what you love. And it wasn't filing, it wasn't finance, it was just, I found some way of helping people.
So you found this, it was a natural, it was just something that came to you as you were in that environment. And so how did you get from that to being a life coach? Was it a big leap or what?
There were loads of leaps. There were loads of leaps. So I was working there, then I worked in corporate banking. I was working in a private Israeli bank in the city. So that was also really amazing. I used to do the same thing, just talk to people and find out. I always used to be the first to find out everything that was going on in people's lives. And I loved that aspect of it, but not the actual job. It's just a very prestigious job, but I didn't enjoy it per se. And I went through a bit of a challenging time in my life, and I began to get involved in personal development groups, and I just knew this was for me. I just knew I wanted to work with people. I knew I had the capability to do so, and I decided one day, I mean, at the time I had two daughters. I was bringing them up by myself. I was a single parent at the time.
How old were you then?
I must have been late 20s by then.
My goodness. And so you had a full-time sort of high-powered job that you didn't really like, but you got through
Absolutely.
it.
And
living in a huge city and...
it was tough. When I think, honestly, when I think back...
Two daughters on your own.
Yeah.
That's quite something. But you still needed something for you.
Yeah, I was always very clear about that. I knew that one day my daughters would grow up, leave me, and I did not want to just be a mum.
Yes.
I wanted to be a human being who also followed her interests, and it served me greatly to do that all the way through, because I never stopped working. My daughters are now 20 and 22, and I never stopped working all the way through, and it's the best thing I ever did. So, but at the time, one was 3 months old, the other one was 2.5 years old, and it was very tough. And I was working. At one point, I decided I wanted to become a psychotherapist. So I went and studied. So I was studying. I was doing my clinical hours in different therapy clinics. I used to run a charity from home, so I could also obviously earn a living also. Yes. And I did that for quite a while, and then I qualified, and immediately it was amazing. I got a job project managing therapy services in a specific area of London, which I really, really loved. Because there were kids that I was working with and families that were from all sorts of different countries, from refugees, from war-torn countries, different cultures, and I really loved working with these kids, a lot who were very, very traumatized, and their parents. And I did that for about 7 years. And then I was going through another episode in my own personal life, and I realized that I still wanted to work with people because I loved it, but I didn't want to work in the way I'd been working all the way through, which was as a therapist. I wanted to find a different methodology that really worked very differently and was more dynamic. And I found coaching.
All right. And tell me about coaching, because we hear that term sort of around. I see that term everywhere, and I'm not 100% sure exactly. I mean, I know obviously what the word means, but tell me what coaching actually involves. Try to, anyway, in a nutshell. Yes,
and I think I think you're so similar to a lot of people, because most people really don't know what it means, which is why I always tell people it's not a concept, it's an experience. You've got to experience it. But coaching is very different to therapy, which is why people get them a little bit mixed up. Therapy, you tend to go back to the past to figure out what's happening in your life. With coaching, you look at where you are now and where you want to be, and then you have a coach with you that makes sure that you get there. So it's a lot more dynamic. You have something to aim for. You have somebody alongside you which is, like a sports coach. What would a sports coach do? It sort of would push you harder. It would, really bring out the best in you so you can realize your potential. So it's the same thing. It's realizing your potential, taking the best out of you, perhaps the parts of you that you didn't even know existed.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, we're going to take a short break in it now, but I want to, from the coaching, you've actually, I've read your website and you've produced a book and you've been nominated for awards, and after the break we're going to hear all about that. So we'll join you again in a few minutes.